comfortable with visual aids. His title is Effective Interviewing Propels Companies Forward.
Somewhere around 30% of all managers, hiring managers, have been taught how to effectively interview. Somewhere around 20 to 25% of all candidates have been taught how to interview. Doesn't it make you wonder how great matches are made? This morning I'm going to spend the next 5 minutes talking to you just on the different types of questions that you may ask. In front of you there's a sheet that I turned upside down that you can turn right side up, and it's a list of different ways to ask questions. Many people have heard of the behavioral type question, and the behavioral type questions are great questions because they're designed for companies to think about a situation a candidate may face and then develop a question to ask that person how they would handle that situation. Now, the reason they call it behavioral interviewing question is humans are wonderfully predictive. Once we find a way to do something successfully, we will do it that way every single time. Until somebody picks up a 2x4 and goes, whack! You can't do that anymore. You've probably seen on television Criminal Minds. Well, the FBI does have a criminal behavior psychology division, and it is located in Quantico, Virginia. Now, I'm sure the folks that work there laugh every time they see these guys getting on a private plane and going across the country, because I doubt that they're doing that. But the reason that unit exists is because once we find a way to be successful doing something, we'll do it that way every time. And serial killers, that's how they identify which serial killer is moving from area to area. They might not know who it is, but the way they stalk their prey, the way they kill, the way they dispose of the bodies, it's the same every time, or very similar. So a behavioral question is one, let's say that you are a manager and you have a candidate in front of you. In this town, a lot of cash drawers, and you just ask, have you ever found yourself in a situation where your cash drawer didn't balance out? How did you handle that situation? Well, some people will say, well, I'll go to the manager and just explain I can't get this thing to work, and that's great. Other people may give you another answers one you may not want to hear. So behavioral interviewing is a great way to ask a particular set of questions. But what happens many times, since people haven't been trained how to interview, they just ask behavioral type questions, and a person the candidate kind of gets in the flow, and when they're in the flow, then they will just go with the flow. So there are different other ways of asking questions. One is one step, and it's just, have you ever handled a cash drawer before? Yes or no? Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you really didn't enjoy doing what you were doing? The two-step part of that question was, how did you handle that? Another question would be, what frustrates you? And then you can always ask the follow-up question after you listen. How do you show your frustration? The recruiter guy is diabolical. It's just the way it is. There's another way of handling or asking questions that is my personal favorite for when I'm talking to sales professionals. Because you may have noticed some sales professionals, not the one to my right here, will just continue talking and talking and talking given the opportunity. And so a good way to kind of determine whether this person is going to listen to the potential customer or client or is just going to talk their way through is to ask a question like, how do you handle a situation where the client really seems like they want to buy, but you're really not sure? And that person will go and they'll respond, and then they'll think they're done. And then what you do is humans hate silence. So immediately they'll assume they didn't tell you enough. And then they'll enter the confessional. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. And if they talk long enough, they'll say things that they way should not be saying. One time, I was trying this out, and I had a salesperson go 23 minutes. And every time he stopped, I went. And it was great. Not for him, but for me. And what was really interesting in that situation was he got 23 minutes in and went, I just blew this interview, didn't I? And I went, we expect you to listen. Therefore, using the different styles of questions that are on that sheet of paper in front of you, you can craft interviews where you can better determine the type of person who's in front of you and whether they're a better fit for your company. And finding the better fits are the ones that propel your company forward.